Hello and welcome back to our Dark Souls 2 lore playthrough. Today we'll be going to Lost Bastille. Now before we start, there's two ways into the Bastille, so we'll be taking the bird. Now as we go to the Lost Bastille, I want to take an excerpt from an interview with Hiroki Tomari. Sorry for I can't speak Japanese, whatever, who was a concept artist on Dark Souls 2, said, "This was a map that went through many changes. The original working name was the Ruined Castle, but as it was revised and altered, the entire castle became a prison, and the inhabitants, inmates." After being dropped off by the bird at a bonfire, we're able to get a dull ember, which reads, "An ember radiating a dull light. This flame seems to be nearly exhausted, but exhibits an eerie resilience. Perhaps this is its ordinary state." Now in Dark Souls 1, embers are given to blacksmiths so they can give infusions to your weapons. And we happen to know a blacksmith, but we'll visit him a little later. Walking across the ledge of a building, we come across dogs, growlers, and a royal swordsman, who I didn't really explain when they showed up in the Forest of Fallen Giants episode. However, we can learn who they are by looking at the weapons and armor. Armor of a royal swordsman. Its shape provides defense while allowing great mobility. Stripped of ornamentation, this particular armor is designed strictly for battle. King Vendrick supplied his bravest men with the best armor available to face the great giant, but very few returned alive. And their greatsword of the royal swordsman. Its undulating blade draws blood from its foes. Despite the magnificence of this weapon, it was terribly inadequate in the war against the mighty giants. So it seems although these were the best soldiers, given the best armor and weapons, they were too weak to the great giants, and this gives a little more insight into the war of the giants, and explains why the fort in the Forest of Fallen Giants is so destroyed. Walking past the dogs, we go out to a balcony and see a chest, and the pursuer. Why is the pursuer here? Didn't we kill him already? Yeah, we did. But the pursuer comes back every now and then in Dark Souls. How they do this, we're not sure, but it does fit in with their description. Always hunting the bearer of the curse. Moving back from there, we enter the tower and meet Lucatiel again.
I thought that might be you. You haven't changed a bit, have you? The longer I am here, the more madness I discover. A wretched place indeed, but not without traces of its former glory. What could have caused such degradation? Ah, yes, I have not thanked you for humoring me the other day. This is for you. Of course, I have no idea what it is. Our land of Mirror is surrounded by enemies and constantly at war. There is only one way up in Mirror. Join the Order and prove yourself in battle. My family had little fortune and no name. I had to carve out a piece of the world for myself. With two things, my sword and my loyalty to my lord. I was raised to wield a sword from birth. Life was hard, but I never gave it a second thought. I had swift success on the battlefield and quickly attained respectable stature. And then I came here to... Have you heard of the undead? These poor souls affected by the curse. An undead gradually loses his humanity until his wits degrade completely. Finally, he turns hollow and preys upon others. And a hollow can never be human again. One can skirt this wicked fate only with the help of the souls found here. Assuming, of course, that the legends are true. I can only hope that they are. I'm sorry to burden you with talk of my fate. I suppose I've grown weary these days.
So it would seem that Lucatiel was once a respected knight until she came here for some reason that she has forgotten. And I believe that she was a respected knight and then became cursed with the undead curse and came here to find a way to reverse it, and now believes that she can with the power of the old. Walking around the piece of the broken wall, we find more swordsmen and a statue in front of the door. We can unfreeze the statue with a fragrant branch of yore, which I'll talk about at the end of the episode. After running through more swordsmen in what looks like a big gourd cell thing, and moving past them, we reach a gate. Further past there, we come across a fog gate. Before we enter, let's take a look around. Coming in from No Man's Wharf, we go through a large corridor and find ourselves on one of the walls with swordsmen using crossbows and dogs and another pursuer. I almost had a heart attack when that happened. Walking through a gate, we come back to a staircase which leads to the previous bonfire. A Gowler pursues a barrel which explodes and destroys a wall to reveal a bonfire behind the wall. Going through the door, we meet a man swinging a hammer.
Oh, why can't they all be this easy? We've got a wild one here. Shape up, I say. That's it, yes. That's the way. Dear flame, how brightly you burn. Flame, I smell flame upon you. I'm Macduff the blacksmith. All I want is a little flame. So, hand that ember to me. Right now, you imbecile. What a marvelous ember. You've got stones, I pray. Give me stones, and I'll fortify your gear. Flame, dear flame, I give you my all, and you waver and falter. From the start of time, flame allowed man to flourish, and even now he devises new fiery arts, but his reason makes him doubt flame. And so we waver and falter. The power of flame, power of the gods. In the end, it is all beyond our reach. And so, flame allures us, and we attempt to harness its power. Flame, dear flame. Flame, dear flame, I give you my all, and you waver and fall.
So this blacksmith Macduff was possibly either implored or imprisoned by whatever forces inhabit the Bastille. He seemed to have a fascination with flame, the flame of the forgers, he calls it, power of the gods. Macduff was a regular blacksmith, however he was allured by the power of the flame, and now requires an ember because he has no more flame of his own. Also he can light a torch, and then he moves off the chest. This is what it is. Also, giving the ember to Lenegrast, he says,
I see that you have an ember. Where did you get it? I hear that embers were once used in a special process to fortify weapons. But the whole art was lost long ago. Blacksmiths can't use embers anymore. Including myself, I'm afraid. Just keep it as a souvenir.
It's interesting that he says blacksmiths can't use embers. How it was lost long ago. So the question is, how does Macduff know how to? Which I don't think we'll get an answer to for a while. Walking through the fog gate we saw earlier, we are met with the tall, slender forms of the ruined sentinels. I actually had a bit of trouble with these guys, so I summoned the phantom. And phantoms are basically just other people you can summon, but I am playing offline, so this is an NPC summon. Now back to the ruined sentinel. We learn more about them reading the boss souls. The soul of the ruined sentinel, or creation of the jailer. The ruined sentinel has no corporeal form. It is an empty soul that haunts the armor. Now this is really interesting. Empty soul that haunts armor made not by a jailer, but the jailer. And I'll talk about this jailer and who I think it is at the end of this episode. Bye bye, Pilgrim Bear Player. There's also 2 secret rooms in this boss room. But moving past this room, we find ourselves in the servant quarters. We can walk outside and find ourselves on top of another wall and a staircase. We also find a room full of barrels, a door that leads nowhere, and a gate that leads back to another area that we're going to explore a little later. Walking back to the wall, we hear some kind of strange noise, and we see figures flying in the air. Back at the servants' quarters, we can go down a ladder and attack by another pursuer. Using a Ferris lockstone to reveal the secret wall, we can move to the Belfry Luna. We find a small man sitting down and decide to talk to him.
Undead! Undead! Keep hands off our bell! The great bell of Orkin! The bell belongs to the princess, it do. Stay back and we slice you to bits. Me and my chums, we shan't be left. Stay back all your pieces. Tiniest pieces. A long time ago, the princess she made me. Yes, just like so. To guard this bell for the prince's honor. Stay away, foul undead, or you'll be a goner. Stay back, it belongs to the princess, it do. You wish to guard the bell, you do. For the prince and the princess forever. For true. Here for you. When you're round the bell, you'll be brought near. When the bell is in trouble, the ring brings you here. Slice them to shreds, whoever they are, whoever, be they near, be they far. Slice them to pieces for the princess. The princess made me to guard the bell of Olkin. In Olkin, the bell of the princess. In them, the bell of the prince. Yes! Tear him to shreds, tear him to bits. Gather around and ring the bell swift. We've been ringing this bell forever, we have.
Wow, that guy sure is weird, but he does talk about some interesting stuff. First off is a bell that we're not allowed to ring and a princess who made these little guys. Their purpose is to guard the bell to ensure it doesn't ring, but why does this princess make little guys to protect this bell? Well, we talked about a prince and a princess, and I believe a place called Ven, as it's called the Great Bell of Ven, and something called Alkin. And I believe that the prince and the princess were rulers or part of a family that rules Alkin and Ven, and the bell was something that both the prince and the princess made the bell keepers to protect. So perhaps the bell was made to represent something between these two kingdoms. Moving on, we go to the top of the tower and find the bell keepers. Killing them and pulling the lever, the bell rings. And the gate on the floor below us opens up. We walk through with another phantom and we come face to face with with the Belfry gargoyles. And unlike the gargoyles in Dark Souls 1, there are 5 of these things, and we can learn more about them by reading their soul descriptions. Soul of Gargoyles of the Lost Bastille. The elaborate stone statue on the belfry mysteriously came to life. So, we don't know what these gargoyles came to life today. It's almost the same setup as the gargoyles from Dark Souls 1. A bell, the gargoyles protecting it. Strange, but also pretty interesting. Reach another bonfire, but it's pretty much the end of this part of the Bastille. All that's left is a pit full of dogs and an NPC invader, so nothing too interesting. Moving from the Belfry Luna and going back to the yard we saw way earlier, we can see a boat and into a small court with swordsmen and hollow prisoners. These are called rupturing hollows. Good name. And they explode if we get too close. Climbing through more structures, we find a large room full of chests and a suspicious shadow who pops out of nowhere. Also cool statue. Moving to a smaller room, we find a cage, and when getting into that brings us up to a room with a gate full of more hollows. Climbing our way to the top, we come across a room full of these hollows and a statue in front of a bonfire, so we use another fragrant branch of yore to unfreeze him.
Still a bit stiff, I'm afraid. I must thank you, young traveler. I am Strayed, a wandering sorcerer of sorts. I've been a guest for a very long time, but I don't think that anybody will miss me. Very good indeed. Cursed one, weak you may be, but I, Strayed, will teach you my spells. How long was I sat petrified? Long enough for the old kingdom to have crumbled, I see. Why didn't anyone wake me sooner? Rang Lake. I've never heard the name. Is that what they call this place now? Very good. Very good indeed. The cursed ones were imprisoned within this land. Of course, you came of your own free will. The people fear the cursed ones like a plague. Some people would rather keep dreadful things out of sight, out of mind. In the end, they swept them up and corralled them here. So very typical of meat minds, don't you think? Once people became aware of their own frailty, they seized anybody they found undesirable, cursed or no, and impounded them here. Whoever posed even the slightest threat was removed, all so that they could sleep better at night. They even turned the great Strayed into a stone. Many kingdoms rose and fell on this tract of earth. Mine was by no means the first. Anything that has a beginning also has an end. No flame, however brilliant, does not one day splutter and fade. But then, from the ashes, the flame reignites, and a new kingdom is born, sporting a new face. It is all a curse. And it is your cursed flesh that will inherit the flame. Pyromancy
was created by the ancient witch of fire. She harnessed the power of flame and melded it into pyromancy. The witch led her daughters into war against the Old Ones. But legends are legends. What are you prepared to believe? Feeble, cursed one. Let's hope the magnificence of my spells does not deter you.
So what Striad says is very interesting. He was imprisoned here from an old kingdom who were scared of his power, and he makes a reference to the cycle of fire, each kingdom of flame, only for that flame to go out, and another to come from the ashes of the previous one. He also says that it would be our cursed flesh that would inherit the flame, which is a little strange. He also explains more about pyromancies, and that the witch and her daughters fought the old one. This is a pretty clear reference to the Witch of Izalith, one of the 4 lords from Dark Souls 1, and the one who created demons and the Bed of Chaos and pyromancy. Very interesting character, and also he can turn boss souls into weapons. So now I can give a little bit more lore about the bosses. So by the Stride, we move back down, open a gate to a bridge that takes us to a large tower. Walking through the fog gate, we enter Sinner's Ride. Moving up a ladder, we find a bonfire, and now we can begin our journey. Find more swords, and then we go down a large elevator. At the bottom, we find a summon sign for Lucatiel. We move forward, find another Fluxile Sentry, dealing with that, we move to a jail cell, and find more hollows, and a Hayden Knight in a cell. Opening up a gate at the bottom, we attacked by a global hollow. After exiting, we see a large structure under the Bastille. We also find these things behind doors, and what these are will be explained after this. After walking through the fog, were attacked by the Lost Sinner. A prisoner has been rotting here for an unknown amount of time, buried in the Lost Bastille. After killing the Lost Sinner, we read their soul and find out more about them. Soul of the Lost Sinner, prisoner of Sinner's Rise. The Lost Sinner eternally punishes herself for the sins of her past. What sins did she commit? Why was she imprisoned so deep under? And what was that thing that crawled into her eye? Although I don't have all the answers at the moment, I have a theory. The thing that crawled into her eye held a strong resemblance to the Chaos bug from Dark Souls 1, the bug at the center of the Bed of Chaos. Basically what was left of the Witch of Izalith. And I believe that the Lost Sinner is a fragment of the Witch of Izalith and punishes herself because of the sins the Witch of Izalith did, like recreating the first flame. And before we move on, the sides are tubes of oil you can light to make the boss fight brighter. But I killed Lost Sinner on my first try, so like, oh well, I guess. But moving on, we find a large room with a single bonfire. However, the sword is broken, and lighting it says it's a primal bonfire. And resting at it returns us to Majula.
You have acquired the soul of an old one. That is more than most undead can say.
Talking to the Firekeeper, she says that the Lost Sinner is one of the 4 old ones. And with that, we have explored all of the Lost Bastille. A little bigger than most areas, but quite a fun one. Now, just a few things to touch on before we end. First is Lucatiel. Why is she here? Like, in Dragon Lake, not in Lost Bastille. I believe she was touched by the undead curse when she was still in Mira, and decided to wear her mask, either to keep her curse a secret or warn others that she is cursed. She came here to find a way to reverse the undead curse, and thinks that she can by taking more powerful souls, and she might just be right. So in this episode, I use a fragrant branch of yore. So what is a fragrant branch? And why does it unfreeze people? Well, reading the description, a fragrant tree branch with a faint, sweet smell. Restore the life of things turned to stone. Extended inhalation of the branch's scent can leave the coughing and nausea. So it would seem that the smell of the branch is able to reverse the petrification, although it doesn't explain much more than that. Right. One last thing before we end is the jailer. That is talked about in the Rune Sentinel Soul. Although it could just be like a translation error. I think there is another thing that hints at it, at like a main jailer in charge. And that is the Bastille Key. Long ago, a Bastille lord, driven to desperation by the rapid spread of curse across the land, began to see each subject as a carrier of the blight, and locked them away in droves. The entire Bastille was turned into a prison and left abandoned to rot its prisoners. Now, it's not confirmed, but I think the Bastille Lord is the same Lord who created the Ruined Sentinels, since it's like a main jailer in charge, Bastille Lord being basically a prison lord. Now, it's not confirmed at all. I haven't found anything else that would suggest otherwise, though, so just a little something to think about. Also, Strayed being imprisoned is also brought back to the description of the Varangian sword. The king, racked with fear and suspicion, began to see the progenitor of the curse in anything and everything. During his reign, sorcerers in particular suffered dreadful persecution. If what Strayed says is true, it was because the king wanted everybody who was a possible danger due to his suspicion had him in prison. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you to everybody who watched. It might be a little while until we get another episode out. There's a lot going on at the moment, but it won't be too long until the next episode. Goodbye.